the plan was while we were dating in high school. So here's my high school girlfriend, and we're dating, and we break up before prom and all that, but we had already both been accepted to the same college. So we're like, we're both going to go to the same school, but now we've broken
Wow.
up. We actually went to prom together, had a great time because we were broken up and just cool about it. And everyone else who was together was fighting the whole time. So that made the college experience a little bit crazy, having your ex-girlfriend from high school living like right across the hall from you, and you were just thrown into this building with a bunch of other 17 and 18-year-olds without their parents, no rules anymore. Everything was just like go, no parents to worry about, no times you could not call somebody, you could see anybody in the hallway.
Oh man.
Pure chaos those days. Those college
Pure
days.
Pure chaos.
Those college days. But you know what? You had to go to high school first and get good grades to go to college,
You
kids.
did. Well, I mean, you know what? You could be one of the classifications of people we were going to speak about and completely skip over high school and still get to college. But I don't know a lot of people that had that happen. We were just we grew up in a different time, and we're going to completely date ourselves today, simply because of our age, and not just when we grew up, but where we grew up in Miami, Florida. People don't understand the crazy cocaine wars and how it all shaped the entire landscape of South Florida during that time, including the fact that we went to high school and junior high with all of those drug dealers' children. So we were exposed to some things that people that were in Ohio simply were not. So
the ones that are on like Cocaine Cowboys and these Griselda and all these shows that you're watching on,
yeah,
that all happened here. And
we got a lot to talk about. I say we get into it right now. What do you think?
Yeah, man, let's do it.
Production roll.
I mean, to talk about this like high school for us, it was a long time ago, man.
You know what, man? I could have gone the entire show without hearing that, and I know that there's so much evidence already that points in the direction of us being very friggin' old. But you know, I don't know, man. That
it's not no. We're not very old. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying high school was a really long time ago. That's all I'm saying. That's the only comment. We're not old, man. We're not old.
No, we're not old. We're not going to feel old. I know that. So
why?
Impossible.
I think honestly, when you get into your 70s, you could start talking about, man, I'm starting to get old.
So, yeah.
Like even then, you could be saying starting to, you know, and it depending on kind of where your level of fitness is in your 70s and health, you could be like, man, I'm still not old, you know, even in your 70s. But saying it any time before that, no, I'm sorry. We're not.
Especially if you know people that are older than us that are doing real well.
Exactly.
I graduated in 1991. KenMan over here, 92.
19.
I'm glad you asked. Glad you asked that. Yeah. You mean 1883?
There's been 24 years of this 20 thing.
So this episode tonight, while it is titled Fearless, we are going to be speaking about our high school experiences, myself and KenMan, and what we encourage everyone out there right now, which we've got about 12, 15 folks out there at the Casually Serious podcast on YouTube right now. Built Different group, always coming in strong. Thank you so much, BDG Network, always for doing what you do.
Thank you, guys.
The official OAT as well as TCSP on Facebook. I appreciate everybody chiming in, including Sarah, Tammy, and Richard right now. But yeah, we want to hear your high school experiences and what you've got going on in the midst of this conversation. So I want to also preface this by saying we're going to classify groups of people tonight with the terms that were used at the time. And I'm only prefacing this by saying there are some people who might not be Gen X that are watching this episode right now. The chances of that are really freaking slim. But there may be a couple.
If you are.
Yeah, thank you very much if you are. We appreciate that. I didn't really think a lot of those young folks look back, but it's a crazy time. It's a crazy time that we're about to speak about
It's
right
good
now.
comparison of today's high school versus the. And I don't know. I don't go to high school today, so y'all tell us.
Yeah. But we're going to use terminologies for these groups of people that we used back then. It might not be proper right now, but we're not going to do it's not going to be anything crazy. Believe me, this is just what we call each other when we were doing one of these numbers. So we had a bunch of groups of people that we hung out with. All right. And we actually wrote them down. So, and it's so crazy, everyone kind of got along, but a lot of the folks didn't. And I always kind of said to myself, it's so insane that someone you've never met and never talked to can be your enemy. It always seems to be that way with certain groups of these folks that we're going to talk about right now. But first and foremost, I'm going to go through the names of them, of what we called them, and then we can kind of go touch on them. I think that, or maybe we can bring up the picture and then we'll talk directly after that. So
we
first
have pictures.
we do. Whoa. Come on, production.
Look at
I told you, man. $280,000 budget. Of course,
we get me a more comfortable chair. Then this chair is really
no, that we can't do. Yeah, they don't give a shit about anything ergonomic. It has everything to do with production, graphics. So I've got some great pictures to represent the folks that we are going to describe right now. This one is one of my favorites out of all of them. It's not going to be very clear. It's blurry, but what can I do? This. The burnouts. All right. So there is a huge reason why I use this picture. Okay. So the burnouts for us at our school, Miami Sunset Senior High School, were the people who hung out on the side wall where you smoked cigarettes. Now, the reason why we think that's a funny thing is if you look at the far right, that's a good friend of ours right there, Dr. Brian. That man in no way at the time was a burnout. Okay. No. Let's keep going.
No.
All right. Do you want to announce from right to left who these folks are?
Yeah, next to Brian is Jonathan. He's a buddy of ours who now works for a very popular utility company and it does very well. Wonderful dude. Got great kids, great family.
Love you, Wheels.
Hiding in there behind in the back, of course, is our very own Bob.
Bob.
I don't know what that face is right there. You got that eye going. That's stink eye. And in front of Bob with the American flag shirt is our long lost brother Jay Badnell, the man, the myth.
Love you, Jay.
We love that guy. We miss him so much. Dan Gomez next to him, one of my nemesis because he was a drummer. But he was he like Bob was a very good drummer. I was not. So but Dan and I fought over certain girls that were the same. Bob did not, so I didn't bother Bob so much with all that. I can't even make out who's in the back. The two in the back I can't see.
That's Peter Toledo and Andy Feldman, if I'm not mistaken.
No way! Look at that, Andy. Look at that. All right,
Andy is awesome. He's in our audience right now. So Andy, please comment and say that is in fact you over there between Peter Toledo and Mike Frey.
Yep, and then Mike Frey at the very end with the red hat on.
Yes, shall we never leave
local to Miami? That guy.
We never leave Mike Frey out of this. Frey is also one of those guys that was not a burnout either. Neither was Andy Feldman.
Neither was Andy. That's true. Andy was an athlete, so that's true. It's funny.
It's that crazy thing. It's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy because it's simply because, and I'm going to use Andy as a reference right now, just because he's here. Because he was on the side wall, maybe even during this picture or for any given amount of time, that's you get slapped. It's a geographical thing.
Right.
Automatically, you're a burnout, dude.
I like the music these guys flip. I'm down with this or that. I might not dress like them, but you find.
And here's another common theme you're going to find out. Every single one of these classifications of people we are going to go through, at one point in time, we're friends with another group of people, but still we're categorized as their base group name. So from the burnouts, we slide directly into what we used to call the bros. All right. And I apologize right now. We didn't have sources to pull from. This is a very famous breakdancing crew from Miami, Florida. So they might not be who we would call bros, but let's face it, they were bros. Okay, so what we are talking about with bros would normally be, they would be probably predominantly Hispanic. And the reason why we call them bros is because they always go, bro, you coming over later, bro? It's not like we were calling them brothers or anything like that. They called each other bro and brothers, and everyone was bro, just like other people dropped N-words to say they were homies and stuff. These
Right.
guys were bros. That's the way that worked. But it was
Yep.
mostly Hispanics, mostly made up of the offspring of drug dealers, mostly drug dealers themselves, wearing Z Cavaricci pants, dress shoes that were just not necessary in the Florida weather, and a lot of chips on their shoulders at the time. These were folks that directly stood as the antithesis of the burnouts.
Yes.
So most of the time you will find the burnouts getting into collisions in some way, shape, or form with the bros because it was inevitable. At some point, there was such an influx of Hispanic cultures, not only from Colombia and Cuba, all the places that were basically selling coke in Miami had their children there in Miami. That's what happens. So that went on to bring us over to the job. Oh,
Nice.
great job, production.
Great
Seriously, you
picture.
got the guy with the
I
Miami
love
Dolphins
that.
shirt. And
That's
that really
awesome.
does, if you think about it, you look deep into the eyes of these sons of bitches. They're definitely qualifying as the jocks we grew up with. That's just
Oh
the way
God,
that is.
yes.
They had the genetics, we didn't.
Right.
It's just they were most of them were bullies and ass clowns, and that was like the greatest time of their life. If you look at them now, they're probably really not doing so well because they didn't need the social skills throughout their life. They had either looks or the body or whatever the other things that we didn't have.
And
The
athletics, of
people,
course. They
the
excel in
athletics,
athletics.
exactly.
Schools like
And
that.
then the jocks would kind of have a problem with this next group, but this next group would always have a problem with the bros, and those were the skaters. Now, this is a group I also fell in line with. I was also in with the burnouts. I was in with the bros a little bit too. We'll get into that a little bit later. But these skaters were I think, junior high and high school. I definitely clicked in with the most because I skated with Jason Hart, Greg Abrams, the guys in my neighborhood, Mobile Say, all the guys that we grew up skating with. It was a big click. And the one advantage we had, and I want you to look at the picture of these because this is an actual 80s picture of people that were skaters. If you look at them, let's just go on record and say they don't look like the most assuming, scary people in the world. All right.
Well,
But
those sure don't. You got a bunch of kids
the,
in that picture.
the cool thing about being a skater, though, is that you always had a big ass heavy weapon on you. So
Sure.
the bros would get into confrontations with the skaters, and the skaters would use their weapons that were much further. They were able to do, further attacks and hit them in the head where, they weren't using guns back then. It was knives or chains or something like that. It just didn't work out. They weren't jumping skaters. And I myself have slammed a skateboard on more than 5 bros in my life. But that's also something we'll talk about later. So the skaters, the skaters were there, and they were also friends with what we would call the brains back then. And yes, we all know them. They would be the ones in the computer lab because the computer lab was sort of a cutting edge thing back then.
Those were our computers back then too.
They were. Yeah, I don't. The one on the left looks a little bit more colorful than it should. I really think we were still monochrome back in that time, but maybe they just had a really good budget at the time. It was maybe Washington, D.C. But the brains were also people that could kind of just weave themselves in and out of most of these things, most of these categories, other than the jocks and the bros. They could weave their ways throughout skaters and burnouts, but they could not get their way through a bro or a jock. And neither could our good friends, the goths.
Oh, wow.
All right. Again, we've got limited pictures. What I was looking for was authenticity with the pictures. I didn't want new pictures of people trying to look like they're from the 80s. This is from the 80s. And this is how some of the girls, and a lot of these are women, by the way, because for some reason there weren't pictures of men back then, I guess. All of the 80s pictures I've been able to find and production has been able to find are all of women. But the goths were a different group of people, even the men. But the women, I don't know. I liked them a lot too. I liked the goth ladies. I didn't have a problem with them at all. But the goths did not go with any of the other groups of people. Maybe the burnouts because there was sort of an edge to their music, and maybe a cannabis use and drinking sort of interwove between all that. But goths were not really social with anybody else, let alone themselves, if I'm being honest. But and that made way for the other groups, the band geeks. Band geeks are an interesting group of people because they very easily fit in with the burnouts because the burnouts always gave them respect for playing instruments, as did the skaters. Now, there's some jocks who might actually be band geeks too, but the chances of having a bro being a band geek, 0. Not happening. But the band geeks were just people who focused on horns, drums, and
flutes.
the flutes and the just the ever popular tall outfits, and it was a different group of people.
They
Again,
stuck together.
Everybody was a different group of people in this one. And then lastly, we have the folks
There's
who
another
try
one?
to. There's one more. We came up
Oh
with it.
wow, my God.
We knew it. The wannabes.
Ah,
Remember?
yes.
Now,
Oh,
in this
yes.
instance, again, we're going with women for some freaking reason. There were plenty of Michael Jackson wannabes, but apparently there were a lot of Madonna wannabes at one point, and we all know this because every woman was wearing the jelly bracelets and the all the shirts and the nonsensical jewelry and the Ray-Bans. But those were the groups of people that we went to school with.
Wait. You wanted to be Michael Jackson?
Oh, I think I was at one point, actually. Yeah,
interesting.
I was pretty sure I was. I definitely had the parachute pants. I had the. I mean, he was the first concert I went to.
I feel like the wannabes were more a group of people that they would be in all the groups, or they could be like they would.
I just
try to I know that's hard to. I get it, but I feel like those were, and there was like those people existed where, it turns out today that's probably the best way to be, because then you're just kind of like friends with everybody. But there was one driving force to all of these groups when we were going to school, and that was music. And you could actually really categorize a good percentage of all of these groups together by the music that they listened to. Certainly with the Burnouts, they were listening to heavy metal, they were listening to rock music, which is very popular at that time. But the Burnouts would listen to maybe some of the heavier stuff than maybe just your average person that would be listening, at that time. So I feel like that definitely had a big difference with then the Bros, who were generally listening to rap, which, today's hip hop, whatever, but back then it was rap to us, and some of, that kind of music. And then jocks really didn't care about anything but football and basketball and all of their. So the music to them really, didn't matter as much. They could listen to anything. It didn't really matter. That really wasn't their deal. They kind of congregated just because of their sport. I actually played football one year from being a burnout, and then all of a sudden playing football is kind of cool because you build that camaraderie in that field, that team, I didn't have the build of much of those jocks, so I would not be considered a jock. I definitely kept the burnout look while playing football, but that still was a kind of a neat thing. The goths listened to a lot of kind of strange music that I couldn't even describe or name anybody. I'm sure Bob could. But
we're going with Bauhaus for sure. Definitely Sisters of Mercy.
Very, very, very depressing stuff. And they wore black all the time, and they were very pale and black lipstick and all those things. That was definitely, but that was a music thing too. They were driven to each other, not necessarily by the look, but so much more so by the music. So that to me is really what split all that off. Band geeks would, they were into obviously their music that they would play in band and music classes, but they were also obviously music people, so they would appreciate music, but I feel they were a little more open to, kind of different music all across the spectrum. So
yeah,
I don't know, to me it was really music was the major driving force to that, where, I'm wondering if that's the same thing today in high school, if do the groups break off in that kind of way, or is it that since music is so different now, I feel like you don't have as many categories of music as we did back then. If we had a big country group here, we'd probably have a country western group too, but country wasn't a big thing down here. So, but there's just so many genres of music. See, genres
yeah,
of
genre.
I think I said genres though.
You nailed it.
So
that works.
Whatever. I think that really broke us up into all those different groups. And yeah, we were cool with one another. There were a lot of people that just got past that stuff and were okay with it. And I think honestly, drugs did that too. I mean, once everybody started smoking pot, nobody cared anymore. Usually it was just the burnout smoking pot. But then once everybody started smoking pot, including the jocks and everybody, and even the brains and the band people, everybody. And once everybody did that, those barriers just kind of all broke down a little bit. And then all of a sudden you got the, Public Enemy and Anthrax. All of a sudden there was like rap and rock was getting together. So you had all those. I know there was many before that, but just kind of melded into something where I felt like, okay, cool. We fixed all that. But before that, when there was that strong divide, there was a lot of arguments in school, and it was dangerous sometimes to go to class. There were people that would bring knives to school, and there was a lot of times where they had a bunch of people that, they put extra security out there, and there were a lot of brutal fights, to be honest, and
Yeah.
it was over this stupid stuff. And I think it was amazing over the kind of the 3-4 years that we were in high school. Through those years, I feel like we saw that like happen and go away all at the same time, where we kind of went through a year and a half or maybe even 2 of that kind of really hostile time, and then all of a sudden it got to where now we were together, and we were all kind of like the same people were at parties. You wouldn't get in, there wouldn't be a big fight because 2 different groups were there anymore. People were welcoming of each other because you were sitting around a circle smoking a joint, and all of a sudden it's like, oh cool, and now nobody cares that you're a burnout or you're a bro or you're a god. Nobody cares. Take a couple more puffs, you're going to care even less. And that's kind of what I saw happen, and maybe it wasn't pot for some, it was just drinking or just being a part of going to the party or just being there. But I just saw those barriers break down a lot through those particular years.
The ability for myself, there's a few of us that were strong at it, that were able to sort of be, and it's something that a term that I've used my entire life, was a social chameleon. The ability for any of these groups of people to be able to coexist with other groups of people, especially like an enemy format, where you've got someone who's, against the other, which is almost always the burnouts and the bros. I was able to sort of exist with, I definitely could get along with all of these people for sure. My best friends were burnouts, bros, jocks, skaters, brains, goths, band geeks, wannabes, for sure. 100% definitely. But I think I was, I maintained about 170 pounds at 6'3" for all the way through junior high and high school, man. I was skinny. I was also a little crazy too, so that helped a little bit. But at the same time, it's not like I wasn't afraid of going to school and getting my ass beat every day, dude. Like almost every kid was. We went to school with violent drug dealers' children who were basically just violent drug dealer children. You know what I mean? Like that's just how that turned out to be. And so with all the gangs and shit were massively prevalent in junior high and high school, and myself and lots of other guys would actually walk the line on the side of high school, which was an initiation for gang members that were trying to get new gang members to join their gangs. You would walk the line and let them punch you through about a line of 20 people. And I would just sometimes see it happening and just put my backpack down and just walk it, just for the hell of it, just to let them be like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? And they'd be like, you want to get in? I'm like, no, dude, I'm good. And just get my backpack and walk away. And after doing that a few times, they were like, dude, all right, that was my way of kind of disarming them, because that way they don't have anything against you. When they see you in the wild, as it were, they're not going to look at you as prey because you've already gone through their initiation for no apparent reason. And it wasn't just me doing that, by the way. Don't make it sound like I was a special. Our friend Jason, a lot of us did it because we knew these guys. And yeah, it had a little bit to do with probably narcotics in some way, because in high school, that's the way it was. And let's not pretend like not all of us, a lot of us didn't sell coke. We did, sold weed. That was the way it goes. That was the way it went back then.
Here's a little secret I'll tell everybody out there.
Oh, damn.
Everyone in Miami is a drug dealer.
Everyone in some way, shape, or form. Yes, in some way. But at the same time, we all had to kind of coexist, and my ability to go in between and hang out with all these people was great. And the common thread, like you said, was cannabis. The lower chances were the brains and band geeks being involved in cannabis in any way, but that didn't mean that there was a zero chance. It was just a little bit lower. Right. Cannabis was a beautiful thing, and we always got really good Colombian weed in Miami, man, and it was always amazing. So, but it's back
before they grew it here. We had to actually get it from
right. The conflicts happened with between bros and burnouts and skaters. But jocks were in there too, and some jocks were definitely friends with some of the gangbangers, because a lot of jocks could fight. So then you would either going to be beating a gangbanger's ass or getting beat by one, or beating someone's ass with a gangbanger. And that's the way it was back then. I mean, I don't know. As much as I didn't love high school, the experience I had socially was okay, because it was safe for me to be able to weave in and out of these groups and not feel like I had to be any of them. I could just be myself. I could just be crazy Bob, Clown Bob and with all these people, and they'd be like, cool, cool, cool. And I didn't have to worry about it. The Goths weren't going to beat my ass anyway.
For me, it wasn't until my junior year of high school when I joined the football team. And that was when I really realized what it was like to be a part of a team. And here were a bunch of guys that I'd seen over the last couple of years, maybe bump me in the halls or do whatever, or just be who they are together. But there was a camaraderie there always with those guys. And when you became a part of that, no matter where you sat, because I wasn't high on the depth chart there, didn't play a bunch, but I was there, and I was, they got to use me as another body to throw around. but they still take you in the same way. Like, a team is still a team. And that's where I saw a lot of barriers break down too. And where even walking through the hallways and being proud to wear your jerseys and, to just be a part of that, I felt, for me at least, was a big thing, because I was so isolated in what was always one of the smaller groups, because the burnout group was definitely one of the burnouts, and probably the goth were the smallest groups. So I felt like being a part of that small group, I didn't see a way to be involved with more things than the school. And I love football, so I was like, I don't think I'm good enough to play on the team, but our team sucks. I mean, Sunset was always horrible at football, so I figured.
But we love you, Coach Parsons. You did your job, Coach. You did your job.
And it was fun. It was a lot of fun, though, and it definitely made a big difference. In my experience of high school, I liked high school a lot more after that.
I have a jock story really quick. And it's very improbable that I'm about to say this, but I while being a burnout for sure, and again, I wasn't a burnout per se where I would wear band shirts to school, because I don't think I did that a lot, even though I was in a band in high school. That's not what I did. But the reason why is because I was poor, really, and I couldn't really afford to get it. I had knockoffs and hand-me-downs, dude. That's the way it goes. But at any rate, as a burnout, I still lifted weights. I still hung out with people. I tried to stay in shape because I was always very self-conscious about my weight. Even though I was skinny, I went to the weight room. At the very least, I was kind of strong. I was able to keep up with some people. But I got mad because all of the friends around me that I know clearly smoked weed with me were still jocks that were able to get on a football team. And I desperately wanted to do that. For what reason, I don't know, because I wasn't always picked in school and street ball football or anything like that. Even though I was pretty quick, I just wasn't an athlete. I was a drummer, man. I played school and I played drums and I skateboarded, but I got mad at my coach and I was like, man, this is bullshit, dude. Like, all of my friends are on the team and you're not even giving me a shot. And they go, all right. He goes, all right, roll your own, or Riley, what are you, Coach Almeida. I tell you what, tough guy, we're going to give you a chance. So he gave me a shot, and he made me a defensive end. And I was like, all right. And they gave me pads. I'm telling you, it was almost like they were like, this guy's going to get murdered, dude. We're going to just shut him up, dude. So they lined me up at defensive end, and I remember asking the coach. I knew what the position was, but I said to him, "What do I need to do right now? What's my goal? Like, if this is a tryout, what do I do to make the team?" And they go, get to the quarterback. There's no way you're going to do that, because the left and right tackle are going to keep you from doing that. But try and get to the quarterback. 3 drills in a row, sack the quarterback. Bam, bam, swam past him every time. I was skinny and fast. I wasn't strong enough to stop a 300-pound right tackle or left tackle. I mauled the quarterback 3 times in a row, and they kicked me off of the field. They said I was too high motor and too angry to play because I sacked the quarterback.
That sounds right.
So bad.
That sounds right for our school.
Yeah, there was.
Wait a minute, you're good? No, you can get out of here, man. Go to the wrestling team.
They were so pissed, dude. And I remember feeling like, dude, what did I just got kicked off for doing? And they were just like, that's our star quarterback you sacked 3 times. You asked me to do that, dude. What? Well, not that hard. And I'm like, I don't know what you mean. Oh my God, dude. It was the weirdest experience I ever had. It was the only time I ever played professional football, or school football anyway. And it wasn't a good experience, man, other than the fact that I got to get past a very large tackle 3 times in a row. That was just like, what the 3 times,
well,
dude,
I mean, obviously that's the dude the coaches should be yelling at. Obviously.
Exactly, man.
Your tackle's not that good if you're letting that happen. So, but that's a whole different story, though.
I definitely had. I didn't do a lot in high school. I slept in Jay's van for a good amount at the time there, man. We got
Love you,
about 30.
Jay.
We got about 30 seconds left. Anything we
We're in
want
the
to do before
Swift
we get
Jet
out of
tonight.
here?
No, there's not too much to say. I'm not going to be here next week, and I miss you guys. I don't like when I'm not on the show because he gets Stormy to come in, and that guy is better looking
Stoney.
than me. He's cooler than me. I'm sorry, Stony. I said Stormy, didn't I? Stoney's better looking than me. He's a much better person to watch live. So enjoy next week with Stony. Sorry, I was thinking of
see
Stormy Daniels. I was just reading a story about Stormy Daniels.
We'll see you, folks.